Kyle, you're dressed up for this.
Yep.
That's why he put on a tuxedo.
Specifically for the finale of Game of Thrones.
People can't see it, but Kyle is wearing a suit right now to talk about the Iron Throne.
Yep.
The finale of Game of Thrones.
It just meant so much to me.
8 years in the making.
He says as he stares at his phone.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Man, podcast.
I feel like I have
history.
I have a natural talent that I can keep up with you guys without listening to your opinions. I'm only here to talk about my own.
Kyle, this is the most important event of human history. You can't half-ass it.
Edmure Tully said so. It's the most important moment of our lives.
Oh my god.
What we say here will reverberate throughout history.
Looks like we made it.
And there's Michael's attempt at a joke at the beginning of every episode.
Hey!
Alright. Shinza.
Alright. So here we are. After all these years of Game of Thrones, was theorizing and talking and criticizing and being pissed and being not pissed and being hopeful and optimistic and then pissed and hyped and then pissed. And it's over.
Good.
Show's over.
Show's
Good.
over.
I'm happy. Happy it's over.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge Game of Thrones nerd, but I'm glad that this is over. That's kind of like a sad thing to say. I'm actually really bummed that people didn't like the ending. I also didn't really like the ending.
That makes me happy that people aren't uniformly retarded. So that's a good thing.
Yassin's eyes widen.
But yeah, there's a petition going around to remake season 6.
I said not uniformly. There are still some.
Yeah.
Mostly handicapped.
So well, let's start there.
Yeah, let's please start there.
Let's start there.
Where I think it's fair to say that anyone who has signed this petition at least deserves to get hit in the face. It's the
With
funniest. Sure, Michael. You mean like a Hot Wheels car? Just throw it at him. No, it's really, really annoying. Like this huge level of entitlement. Like we were just talking earlier, where I was like, now everyone that wants the Snyder cut of Justice League looks so much better compared to Game of Thrones.
I'm glad I look a lot better.
Right, because that's a thing that exists.
That's a thing that exists, and they're actually raising money for it, where they're like, could you just re-edit this thing that you already made? And then there's 82,000 people signing their names and being like, I didn't like what I got, so you need to go back to Ireland. You need to get all these costumes and actors. I don't care how much it costs. This isn't what I wanted. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, yeah, it sucked, but what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Television writers aren't fucking cooks at a drive-thru where they're just taking your order and giving you exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Go back to your fanfiction forum, you fucking nerd.
I actually wanted fries on my season finale. Can you remake this? Jesus.
No, it's ridiculous, and it's. I mean, obviously, we're taking a straw man a bit right now, right? We know that not everyone is signing that, but a lot of people are signing that.
No,
petition.
I'm talking about the people signing the petition.
Right, I know.
It's okay to not like the ending of Game of Thrones.
Right,
Yeah.
obviously it's okay
most
to
of
not
us
like the
didn't.
ending. Most of us didn't like it. I don't know. I think one reason why I think that's particularly crazy is that the problems with season 8. I don't think okay. So with those people, I'm wondering a lot of people then would say oh, I just want different stuff to happen, and then someone would be like, oh no, it just the way you do it needs to be different. But honestly, and we'll get more into this, but I don't think they could have done very much, some things, but I don't think they could have done that much differently within season 8 alone. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like the problem, a lot of things season 8 is that, well, you didn't set them up before season 8. But season 8, on its own, I don't know, you remake it, how much better? I mean, it could be a little bit better, but how much better could it be?
I feel like there's definitely things you could have done to cushion the blow.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, everything
of
that
course.
we've had feels like they had an ending, and then they just kind of tried to connect the dots to get there.
Oh,
as
yeah.
easily and streamlined as they could.
Well,
Oh,
that's the
God,
thing.
yeah.
I have a lot, as I was joking before, I have a lot of mixed feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But, I feel like they had this ending, but they had 2 seasons that were lackluster before where they were just wandering around doing whatever when they could have been better connecting these dots. And then this season they were like rushing to connect the dots.
Well, what's so annoying is like I remember like you guys liked episode 2, but like in retrospect, I think that's like fucking horrible as far as pacing for this whole season goes, where it like kind of just is there to like serve as like character moments before we have the big like Battle of Winterfell, which even then kind of just feels flat with like how it just serves to resolve one main story arc, and then it's like, okay, now we got to get to this, and it's like there's so much more that could have come into play, could have been set up or like, you know, emphasized, but it just didn't.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a great episode if this was like 10 to 12 episodes for this final season, or there was another season after this that had to deal with, you know, all the extra bullshit that came for it. But it didn't, and because of that, it's just, it feels fucking garbage.
Yeah.
I still think that's one of the better episodes of this season. For me, anyway. I think that episode probably would have been better if the Battle of Winterfell was more impactful.
Oh, for sure.
Like, because that episode's like, oh, this is like the last night of our lives. And it's like, actually, no. We all survived.
Just kidding, guys.
Just for like a couple people.
Like Jorah is gone, and Ed, in case, like, Ed, a character who, like...
Bran got eaten 3 times by zombies, but she's okay now.
Yeah, a lot of the characters died. Like, 2 of the characters that died are characters that literally could have died off screen, and no one, like... A lot of people wondering, like, oh, did they die when the Night King attacked the wall? Like, Ed and Beric.
Yeah.
And if they had, people would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, those are... So, yeah. But, you know, I think that, like, looking at the season as a whole, there's just... Yeah, there are things they could have done to cushion the blow, but it really did feel like they were careening towards this ending that they didn't set up super well before. And what sucks is, like, even the stuff they spent a lot of time setting up actually wasn't super rewarding. Like, Jon killing Daenerys, and obviously we're in full spoiler territory.
Good thing to warn after the fact, yeah.
Who's gonna watch it? Okay.
Who's gonna listen to this anyways?
To be honest, Jon killing Daenerys actually fell super flat for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else felt
that. That should have been like
agree.
super emotional. Like I felt like the emotion of the music and the cinematography, but like it didn't hit home. Like it was just like I get that you're trying to make me feel something, but I'm not feeling it.
If Michael Kemp doesn't cry, you didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like doesn't take much.
I think with that, a lot of the part of the issue was that it was actually like, I mean, I'm not saying it should have felt like a twist, like, and that's something I like. They didn't try and trick us into thinking he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
But it just like felt like, okay, well, we know he's obviously going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much the whole episode. Like,
pretty much before the episode starts.
Yeah, before the episode starts. Yeah. Like, even the fact that leaks had been out for 2 weeks, like, that, even besides that, like, before the episode starts, like, you know what's going to happen. And then they didn't even, and that's fine, they didn't try and trick us, but, like, there also isn't any ambiguity to it. Like, one of the great... I'm sure... I mean, the D&D didn't confirm this, but they talk about...
She walked into the knife. She wanted to die. She knew what her sins were.
It's like Han Solo.
The famous Hitchcock technique, leaving it ambiguous and off shot.
Like, the D&D have famously talked about, like, 3 holy shit moments, right? And the first one was, like, the burning of Shireen. Compared to the burning of Shireen, the death of Daenerys actually falls really flat. I remember feeling way more when Shireen died, because there's just this, like, horrible sense that something wrong was happening. Whereas when you watch Jon kill Daenerys, it just feels like, yeah, obviously, like, she's got to go. She's talking like a crazy person.
Yeah.
They just really, again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have. I get Daenerys becoming a villain. I get why that's a good idea narratively, but too much. Just so much that it didn't feel... There's no weight to killing her off anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no moral gray area. It's like, oh, but maybe she was like almost... Like, I joked before, like, oh, like when we saw the next episode... like kind of preview, and Daenerys is like standing in front of all of her army, like, oh, is she gonna give like a General Hux speech? And then she basically gives a General Hux speech.
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, no, she's full like super villain now.
Well, I mean,
like,
it
there's
also
no like.
I mean, it also doesn't have a lot of weight because she turns evil right before the last episode. So you're like, yep, someone's gonna pop her off next one,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
Yeah.
So, like it doesn't matter that much. I know that D&D had like the option of doing 2 more episodes for this season, and I was like, it doesn't matter, just end it. But now, like, everything that everyone has been saying, like George R. R. Martin or HBO, of like, let's make this a little longer. I kind of get it. You know, it's like this should have been longer. This should have been fleshed out more.
But they gotta get that Star Wars money.
I agree. I think that, and the thing is, they spent 2 years on this season. Honestly, I think maybe spend. I know, like we joked in the group chat, like, or maybe it was just but like, so there was like talk about like, oh, well, maybe less battles, but honestly, like, kind of, yeah. I think maybe they should have like focused less on the battles and the big sequences this season and more on just the character, because like the battles didn't serve them.
What are you talking about? That's Game of Thrones. Giant, high-budget battle sequences. That just screams this series to a T.
That's what the series was built on, clearly.
Here's the thing, like, honestly, from the beginning of me watching Game of Thrones, I always had the feeling, like, the idea behind it was start small. Like, oh, like, there's eggs that might turn into dragons. And, oh, we kind of hear about magic. And then slowly introduce it. And they started to do that. I mean, they slowly, like, built up. And then by the end, yes, I was like, I expected by the end full bombastic, like, dragons, like, crazy, like, battles. But the thing is, like, yeah, there were dragons. Yeah, there were battles, but they weren't, like, that great. And, like, they didn't, like, again, like, they introduced magic. Like, Melisandre just lights some swords on fire and Bran does fuck all. Like,
he got high.
Like,
he got fucking high.
You had this really
Smoke weed every
interesting
day.
character you could have done so much with. And beyond, like, doing that interesting, like, flashback, like, that was about it. That we got to see as an audience.
We'll get to Bran. But, I'm not saying that, like, the idea of doing big battles is inherently a problem. It's just that it seems like this season took 2 years, and obviously it took 2 years because of all the battle sequences. And I think that, like, it wasn't worth it. I would have rather gotten this a year ago and been done with it, rather than, you know what I mean? Rather than
I get
spend 2 years waiting for it for an extra 20 minutes of battle that isn't that good and is part
it's
of
hard to see.
Yeah, and it's part of it's like not that great a story. I definitely think like shorter battle sequences and 2-3 more episodes would have probably been better for this season.
Oh yeah, because I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, after like, because I know like after Arya killed the Night King, I was like, I think they ruined the whole show. After that, I kind of like took some time and basically accepted what the show had become, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this, and I like with the way they set it up. I was actually very satisfied with the ideas that were behind like what happened in the last episode. Like, I like Daenerys turning evil. I like even like the Jon going beyond the wall and like all
honestly,
like the little Bran becoming king.
There's not a single character whose ending, I mean, we'll get to Sansa, but there's not a single character whose ending isn't right.
Yeah.
So if I'm being honest,
I gotta say, I think Jon's ending was terrific.
Yeah.
And
perfect.
if I liked that character as much as the show tried to get me to, I would have just like, that would have been moving. It would have been like, I mean, we'll talk about each character's ending as we go along, but like Jon's was perfect.
Yeah. So like after seeing all that, I'm like, yes, this could have been a lot. I think that's what makes it more frustrating. It's like, if they had more time to set these up, these would have been good endings for these characters and for this story. But again, it was rushed. Like that's the biggest sin, I think, of this whole last season, is it was rushed as far as like plot and story goes.
Yeah.
And character development.
Yeah. I mean, every character's ending, I think, is just very good. Mm-hmm. And I hate to, not to be a fanboy, but it kind of speaks to the fact that George R. R. Martin is a better writer than... He's a good writer. Sorry. Like, I mean, I know that he's got a lot of problems. He's too slow.
Yeah.
He's not perfect. But, like, when you look at, like, for me, when I look at what the actual endings are, I'm like, yeah, this guy knows his shit.
Yeah.
It's just the D&D didn't know how to do it. Like,
Yeah.
King Bran, it's extremely unpopular. I think, like, now that I've seen it, I actually don't think any other ending would have made any, like, no other ending is right for this story. King Bran is the only ending that works. I know that's controversial. I know, like, not everyone agrees. But, like, for me, seeing that and, like, thinking about the books and seeing how it starts and thinking about, like, Bran's story, it's like, yeah, it had to happen.
Well,
that had to happen.
The only other person I could see on the throne was just the generic, like, almost like Aragorn getting a throne, like Jon Snow on the throne. But, like, I think, like, the ending he got was perfect. Like, that would have been perfect for that character. Like, the ending he got was perfect for him. He didn't want the throne.
It seems like Dan doesn't agree.
No.
It's one of those things I'm trying to parse out. Is it just bad character writing that got us to that point, or if it's the actual ending that I don't disagree with? Because it's like, oh my god, it's one of those things. There's so much you can point to with how things were resolved in this last season. If you just like, they feel inconsequential now. Like the whole thing with like Jon's heritage feels just like a plot device to sow discord between him and Dany, that he basically loses all dramatic agency this entire fucking season, and he's just there like to look kind of like upset about what's happening around him and not fucking do anything about it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like you take into context, it makes sense that he just wants to hang out with his wildling friends and not deal with this bullshit, but it's still hard for me to see that given everything that I fucking had to do. Like, why does he come back to life? Like that. Fuck all that shit. None of this is justified. None of it's like paid off in any like understandable or respectable way. It's just, it happened, so it happens, deal with it, and then now this is happening kind of thing.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, I guess we'll just talk about Jon's ending first now, since we're onto it. I'll say the magic is a different conversation that I do want to get to, where like, yeah, so much of that turned out to be worthless. But I would say, like, with Jon as a character, you know, when we meet him, he's like this little bastard boy who wants to be like a member of this family, and he knows that that's never going to happen. So he's like, oh, I can be a hero and like serve this noble position in the Night's Watch. And then he's like, oh, this job fucking sucks. And then he comes back to the Night's Watch, and there's that period where he's the leader of it, and he's doing like a pretty good job, and he's just trying to do what's right for everyone. And then he gets killed. And then after that, he moves on and becomes king in the North, and basically got everything that he wanted there. But in order to save all of these people and keep them protected, he has to sort of betray their confidence and give up that position. And then he finds out later that it's like, he's actually heir to the throne, and he could be the king of the 7 kingdoms. And he realizes, like, well, you know, I don't want to do that. And he feels like maybe he's making the right decision by just serving the queen that he swore loyalty to. Then that turns out to be a mistake, because she's horrible. And I feel like it sort of just shows throughout that, like, Westeros has no room for that, like, stark, always make the right, nice, good decision no matter how hard it is. There's no place for it there. Whereas something like, they've always emphasized that Jon is, like, of the North. He looks like a Northman. Like, wildlings are actually a group of people that, some of them are, you know, pretty shitty, but they always tend to respect, like, oh, somebody fought for us. And we reward that. So it's like, this is just a really good ending for that character. But I do feel like it was one of those things where I can see it on paper, where I'm like, this is a perfect ending for that character.
Yeah.
It's just getting there, and Jon has annoyed me so many times. But the way that I'm like, I think this character had the best ending, and I don't really care for this character a whole lot, so I'm like, whatever. And then the magic thing, again, that's a different conversation, but so much of that goes nowhere.
Right. I actually see where you're both coming from. Definitely agree more with Kyle, but you know, I see where you're both coming from, and here's why. Like, absolutely, like, Jon is Mance Rayder 2.0.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's like a great thing, because I think Mance Rayder is one of the greatest characters in the entire story. And that's really who Mance Rayder was. It's almost like how Daenerys, when you look at, okay, what was Daenerys' like big mistake? It's that she insisted, I have to be queen of Westeros. Instead of like, oh, you're doing, these people over here love you, and you're doing this thing here so well, why do that? So like, it's great that Jon, he, instead of being like, oh, I have to be king of Westeros, instead he goes, I mean, he doesn't choose it, but he doesn't choose it, but, and that's actually really good that he doesn't choose it also. Yeah. It's like, oh, he's best here. The thing about magic, like, okay, there is an argument for it. Like, there's a like, oh well, like you could say that Bran was the Lord of Light, and like Bran kind of says it. He's in the last line of dialogue Jon gets. He's like, "Sorry, I wasn't there for you," and then Bran's like, "You were exactly where you were supposed to be." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm the Lord of Light. So like, yeah, he was resurrected by the three-eyed raven, and he's been like on this quest. He's been doing all these things that he needed to do. Like he brought Daenerys to fight the Night King. He was part of that battle. But yeah, I get how like some of the ways it's depicted doesn't feel super consequential, and Jon sort of feels like an idiot when he's just following Daenerys to like you know, there's just so much to unpack with this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he sort of follows Daenerys into this war, and then she goes, it's like he didn't see this coming. Yeah. It's like he just kind of feels dumb.
He is dumb. But I mean, there are a lot of different things where like I feel like after a certain point, and I don't mean to just keep shitting on D&D because I feel like at some point I'm going to play devil's advocate for them. But it starts to feel like in later seasons that they start using lines of like, the Lord of Light proclaims this as destiny for like excuses to bring characters back into the show, where it's like the Hound probably not going to come back in the books, and if he does, like hopefully it's better. But they're just like, oh, Sandor Clegane, you see visions in the fire, you're back for a reason. No, he wasn't.
Well, he was. It was just dumb. He was back to save Arya.
Horseshit.
He saved again. It's call it horseshit. There's an explanation.
But why is that like? Isn't like the Lord of Light and the Three-Eyed Raven and all that just about preserving? At least I was under the impression, stopping the Night King from destroying. Oh, I guess
right. He had to save Arya so she'd kill Night. I don't like it. It's not good, but that's it.
And then
that's the explanation.
And then Jaime's like, "Yo, Bran, why didn't you tell anybody that I shoved you out a window?" And it's like, because you're supposed to be here. He did nothing. Well, Jaime did nothing.
Again, I actually don't. I think the problem there is more that line of dialogue. That like I actually don't have any problem that again the episode isn't good, the battle isn't good, but I don't have any problem that Jaime doesn't like kill the Night King or do something great. It's fine.
I'm just saying you have to understand that for a general audience in a TV show, when you have like the cryptic wizard characters tell the audience essentially that guy's going to do something later, and then they don't. Yeah, you're like, what the fuck was that?
I absolutely agree.
It starts becoming like I'm not saying it's in Lost territory. But
I absolutely agree. With the line for Jaime, like because when Bran tells him like, "What makes you so sure there is an afterwards?" I was like, "Oh, he's gonna die," and then he does, and I'm like, "Well, why did you need that line?"
Because I'm a dick. Can you push me out a window?
But yeah, I mean, I get why fans of Jon are frustrated. Personally, I think that the big mistake people have with Jon is that Jon's story is about hard choices, not great feats.
Yeah.
And so, like, I didn't need to see him kill the Night King. I honestly didn't like... It was fine. I didn't really like watching Ride a Dragon ever. Yeah, it just felt like Daenerys' shtick, and he didn't do it any better than she did. So it just felt like this kind of like weird. All right,
at the very least, it helped fill in the gaps between their quote unquote like relationship and love story. So they needed something there to serve as that because it already felt very hollow.
I agree. It's fine, and I agree. Their love story felt hollow as fuck. Which is another reason why it just didn't really hit me when that love story fell apart. Yeah, as much as it was probably should have.
Yeah, it's more like I've been dating this girl for a month and it's fun fucking her, but goddamn is she crazy.
Yes. Yeah, and there's probably a discussion to be had about the general politics, but I don't think we'll get to it in this episode, and we might not be the right people to...
Yeah. What? Us?
We're dudes? No.
But, yeah, I mean... With Jon, I just think that, like... Again, the last thing I'll say about Jon with the magic is Jon should have never died and come back to life.
No, he shouldn't have.
No.
That's a huge blunder.
I'm sure the books maybe the books will do it well, but I do not. The show, it was not worth it. There's just no. I get what they're going for. It's not worth it.
It was almost like a misdirect that like, so Jon came back to life, so he's the Lord of Light type of thing. But then
it's like they let M. Night Shyamalan into the writer's room that week or something. He's like, guys, this is a great idea.
What if we kill Jon Snow and we bring him back? And it's like, all right.
But no, we kill him at the end of the season and then make people wait in the first episode of the next season. He's back.
With a vengeance.
Dan, it was the second episode. It was a whole, it was a year and a week.
Oh my god.
It wasn't even a year. But yeah, like just moving on.
Yeah. So what?
I guess...
So, I mean, we can just keep going through characters' endings for now.
Yeah. Let's go to Bran. I don't want to save Bran. I want to go to Bran now.
Yeah. All right. Bran's your favorite. He's your boy.
He's my boy. King Bran. Here, I'm like pretty sad that the ending wasn't good. Like I feel it's like really hollow. I remember actually like because you guys came over to watch Game of Cones or to watch Game of Thrones, and then you guys all left, and I just sat there by myself, and I was actually like I just felt like really sad for a second because I'm like, it's over. I got the king I wanted. Why do I feel so empty inside? Because it's like, they did it, but they didn't do it well. So
is it bad that I kind of like, I think Luis left and then I was like, I could tell you were kind of bummed. I was like, I don't know if I should leave now.
No, it's fine.
Just come over and give him a hug and then slowly
I can tell that you were bummed.
Yeah, I was just like a strange sadness that like, because I really wanted Bran to be king for a while. I wanted Bran to be something for forever. And I do think that's the best ending, but like, the way it was done, just,
Because, I mean, other than you, like 95% of the audience was like, why the hell is this kid on screen? I hate him.
Right.
Like, literally, my little brother just started watching the show, and he texted me, he's telling me all the characters. He's like, yeah, Rob's real sweet. Hate Bran. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Like,
I part of me thinks that D&D failed to write it. Part of me just thinks that, I'm eventually going to get to this. Part of me thinks that this story is not for everyone, and Bran is not for everyone.
Sure.
And
that's definitely part of it. But I mean, you got to understand that, one, so many elements of magic and mysticism in this show turn out to be big duds. And I mean, that was all Bran's story. And then two, I can understand why like a general audience feels like, oh, it's fucking bullshit. When Tyrion's like, who has a better story than Bran? And then I'm like, wait a minute. We just wrote him out of an entire season once. For like no reason.
Why is he in the running when he can't even walk?
Yeah, like it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't mind Bran being king. I never cared who was going to sit on the Iron Throne pretty much the entire time I watched this show.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things where it's like, I get why people are so mad about this because he wasn't written that significantly throughout your series. They didn't really care what they were doing with him for a while because, I mean, first 4 seasons of this show, mainly focusing on being like this factioning war ethics drama. And then there's like, here's a little crippled boy and magic. And they're like, we're going to skip that this year. Who cares? And they're like, oh, wait, that was important. And then
season 7, actually, they were just like, it's not going to do much this season either.
Yeah.
It's like they really just like brought Bran Brat. Yeah. They just really brought him back big time in season 8, and people are like, oh yeah, Bran memes, this is fun.
Yeah.
And then he's king, and then people are like, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I did, but I'm in the very vast minority.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I can get behind the concept of Bran becoming king. It's just, again, talking to like how condensed everything was this season, how they got there was just kind of like, that was one of the moments where like I audibly said like, this is fucking dumb. Because it's like, why is this happening? You just have fucking awful civil war and people are just going to be killing each other outside this country if this was like trying on any level to be like the same political machinations that the show had for the first 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, this is stupid. Like, you're letting a Stark be king of this entire nation, and then also you're making the North independent for Sansa, so you can have a strong independent female ruler there. Like,
it's a goddamn.
and
joke.
everyone else just sits there and it's like, oh, I can get behind that. Like, I was promised independence for the Iron Islands, but you know what? They deserved it. He's crippled.
Yeah, no, I mean,
we have to talk.
And Grey Worm just standing in the background pouting. Like, I was just like, what is this scene?
That whole scene is a pretty good summary of like what's been going wrong for like the past few years. Like, I mean, I feel like pretty much in every episode that we've done for Game of Thrones in this podcast, we've pointed out things that have thrown logic out the window or like didn't really make any sense. And then we've sort of brushed it off as like, oh no, that's fine because they're getting to something. But I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's the main reason why this doesn't feel like the same show. Like we can say, oh, it's fine that Cersei didn't like fire all those scorpions on them outside the gates after beheading Miss Sandy because something's going to come from that. Or, oh, it's fine that one ship can kill one dragon, but one dragon can kill an entire fleet. It's like, this used to be a show with logic and deliberation, that there were like real consequences, and there was just some sort of like gritty realism injected into your entire world. And when you like boil this all down into a scene where like, you know, Tyrion has a good speech about stories. I like it.
He does. And Peter Dinklage, I've rewatched that scene several times. Peter Dinklage kills it.
He kills it.
Yeah,
He's
it's a good
so
fucking
well.
speech.
He does it, and it's a good speech for the story in and of itself. I mean, obviously, I think it appeals to all of us. I think I've formed friendships with everyone in this room based off of a love of stories, and it answers like this age-old question throughout the show of like, where does power reside? And
and he thinks it's true.
Yeah, it's true. It's a callback. This is nice. The problem is, you can't just. The scene plays off as if every single character knew that they were in a TV show and this was the last episode and they had to resolve it. Because honestly, this shit would not have flown in like season 3, 4, or 5 or anything.
Oh no.
Where like Dorne would be like, wait a minute, we claim our independence. We withstood dragons last time. Who's gonna fucking take Dorne? And the Iron Islanders are gonna be like, we've wanted our own independence since Robert was king. We're all big assholes. We're not doing this. So the fact, and then Grey Worm, what the fuck? Like, he's got to be super mad. Where he was like, I said this guy can't talk. Oh, well, just listen to his plan. That's fine. And I'm gonna leave, and I don't really care anyway.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what?
No,
what was this?
There's a lot. I mean, we even brought up the fact that it doesn't make any sense that. It's almost ridiculous to even bring up individual things that didn't make sense, but I'll do it. It doesn't make any sense that the Unsullied didn't just kill Jon right away.
Not at all.
Like,
and then they bring in his sisters and be like, so we demand justice. You guys going to agree to that?
I think my favorite part was like when Davos was like, well, how about you get your own kingdom? It's like, that's going to be a pretty short reign for them after one generation.
Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, it was just like, yeah, let's bring a sister. We want justice for him. It's like, you could have taken it anytime you wanted.
Yeah.
Again, I get that part of the
guys, democracy.
That stuff is annoying because, like, you know that they're trying to recreate something else that George R. R. Martin has, but it's like you guys had 8 years to get to it. Why didn't you get to it? It's like they got to it, but they didn't get to it well. It's like, why didn't you build this scenario so that it was like. So that it made sense.
Because it made sense and was satisfying.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been. It could have even been satisfying for Daenerys fans. At the end of the day, it's like technically them having this meeting is like Daenerys kind of broke the wheel like she wanted to.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Unsullied, they get to, go be free in paradise. So she broke some chains. She had some accomplishments. That's nice. But everything in that episode just starts to feel like, oh yeah, they know that they have to wrap this up. Yeah. So nobody cares.
Yeah, no, and I think in the books, like there is a King Bran. Like if you actually like go back and read the first book, King Bran like really does feel like it. Like there isn't a ton of like blatant like heavy-handed foreshadowing for King Bran, but actually like from like a narrative structure standpoint, like Bran being king is actually very obvious in the first book. It's just because it's politically infeasible. Based on the world we have now, like you don't would think it, but like if you actually think about like just the narrative structure, yeah, it makes sense. Like in the first chapter, Ned basically promises Bran that he is going to be in charge of justice. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh yeah, all right, there you go. And I think there is there's a really interesting path that they'll probably take that Martin will probably take to get there. But I agree, like Tyrion's speech about stories is good. And I do think that concept is going to play into the ending of what brings people together, and Tyrion using like a story to get there. But I agree. The problem is that like Bran's story hasn't really been. He says like who's had a better story than Brandon Stark, and it's like, well, for me, I agree, but I can imagine why like people who just watched the show and didn't like read the books and know about all the crazy shit he does in his dreams and in the past, like
exactly. Because I mean, that's the thing. Like him saying that is almost like him asking the audience, like, "What was the most badass shit you saw all these seasons?" Like,
so
what's the coolest thing?
So I
no,
understand why people would say like,
not Bran.
I wanted to fucking kill myself in like book 3 when there were so many chapters towards the start of like Bran and Sam heading north and they kept running into like roadblocks. I'm like, I fucking hate this. This is
Bran and Jojen?
No, Bran and Sam, when they're like, they end up meeting with Jojen.
Right.
Yeah, they're with Jojen, but then they meet up with Sam, and then like, they just keep heading north, and it was just like, wow, this is like bringing all like my least favorite characters together, and it's just like I have to sit through this fucking bullshit, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, whose story was the best though? Like, no, not that.
Not that story.
I don't know. Again, that's another thing where I think that like this story, there are elements of the story that just aren't for everyone. Like Bran is a very, very George R. R. Martin character.
I can, because I read that. What was it? Sci-fi Martin book that you suggested.
He's a
very Bran.
He's a very George R. R. Martin character. So I see why, like, and that's like, maybe we're kind of going through characters, but that's another thing I kind of want to bring up, and I probably want to do a whole video on this, but Game of Thrones was never meant to be for everyone.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that's the problem with it being the biggest show. And
I mean, first and foremost, sci-fi and fantasy fans, pretty much in general, they go out searching for more content, and they're interested in like world building and stuff. And so a lot of times when you have like books and stuff like this, it doesn't have very great characters or dialogue. Game of Thrones did.
Yeah.
And it was a book, and it works better in that medium where it's like people reading like fantasy novels, they expect to wait a few years for like something else to come out, for like the content to start expanding. And it's because you're like, oh, well, I'm going to spend like a week reading this, and it's going to be a year or two before I get the next one. They don't mind all of these tangents and expansions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that like the show took off, it got way, way, way too big for its britches, where it's like now Game of Thrones is on like the same like internet personality quizzes as like who would you be in this universe, right alongside like Marvel and Harry Potter and Star Wars. And I'm like, it is nothing like the rest of those things in any way, but it's just nerdy and popular, and it just blew up. And also I got to point out, like, if you look at the ratings per season, like, I mean, it's when the writing started to get way schlockier and more fan servicey. By like season 6, it just really inflated, you know?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I mean, for everybody that like hates, it sucks when it got past the books, is like, if you've never read the books, you should also be slapped in the face every time you say that, because I feel like that fan base really expanded past the books for the show when it became really pandering, because lots of people flock to pandering.
Yeah. No, I that's another thing that I think is just like really big, is like Game of Thrones is not Harry Potter, and it's not Marvel, and it's not Star Wars. It doesn't like George R. R. Like, if you look at what the ending was and think about like, oh, what are other George R. R. Martin stories? Like, yeah, that seems like him. And in a way, like, that's what... And I guess you've brought this up once, Kyle, but... And I know that, like, fans of the... If any fans of the books are listening to this, they're not. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know who listens to this. But if a lot of fans of the books are like, no, not me, but, like, bear with me here. So many people who watch this show didn't get into this show until 4 seasons were out. Mm-hmm. 5 seasons were out. So, on some level, they knew who was still alive and who were the major players. So, like, a lot of people say, like, yeah, but, like, we always knew that Robb was going to die. Yeah. We always knew Ned was going to die. It's like, if you started from the beginning, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, like, and that's, like, for years now. So, sorry, I'm on a tangent. for years now, I sort of like, I talk about this online and I debate people. And so many people are like, Jon and Dany are obviously going to rule at the end. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like what this story is. Like, no, Ned dying was just the death of the father figure. And Kat dying was the death of the mother figure. And the Red Wedding, like, Robb was in the POV. So, like all of those were just, like, standard story deaths. Like, this was always Jon and Dany's story. They were always going to, like, be king and queen. And I'm like, again, if you're reading it from the beginning, no, that's not what it is. Like, yeah, it's that in hindsight, but like when you're reading it and Ned is like Ned's the main. This is a show that killed off its main character.
Yeah,
and you can be like, oh well, yeah, it was one season, but that's what this show is.
Yeah, that's part of why like that was exciting in the first season. Is like, here's the biggest star that you have for this, and it's an actor who's like not so big that it's unbelievable that he's in a TV show where it's like, oh, this is what Boromir's doing from now on. And then it's like, you're dead. And you're like, wow, that was shocking. Or like if you were just watching it throughout, you didn't automatically, unless you like read the books or looked ahead, you didn't know, oh, Robb Stark is clearly going to get massacred at a surprise wedding,
Yeah.
Or you didn't know, oh, Oberyn Martell, exciting new character that they've introduced that the audience loves. He's going to get his head crushed. I can just guess because this is the Jon and Daenerys story.
Yeah, and a lot of people. Again, so many people like watch it and then like immediately look up fan theories. Like, oh look, Jon is king. I found that on the internet. Therefore, now I know it. Now I have these expectations for what the ending of this story is going to be.
Yeah. Well, plus then you have the whole system of like, again, like fans like wanting it their way, and it's like, oh, Jon's my favorite character, or like Dany's my favorite character.
Arya's my favorite character.
So they better fucking do something awesome and win. Like they better win. Like that's the wrong mentality watching.
But again,
for a lot of things, but especially Game of Thrones, that's not the mentality to have.
But again, when you join late and you're like, yeah, we knew that these people were going to die.
Yeah.
So, but my favorites are good. They're still around for a reason.
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn, it sucks because you've kind of been proven right.
Yeah. And like the annoying thing, like even like for a long time, surprisingly enough, Peter Baelish was my favorite character, and I knew he was going to die.
Yeah.
But like his death was like such a like downer. It's like what?
We don't know how to write smart for this character,
like,
so just kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's also like there are plenty of fans, be they book or show, that like they pick weird favorites and get attached to them. Where it's like, don't get me wrong. I think Stannis is one of the most interesting characters in this world. But like people who are mad about him dying and stuff, I'm like, if you fucking thought that Stannis was going to sit on the Iron Throne at the end of this, you've never read a story in your life.
Yeah.
He's not the POV in anything. He's just sort of a bland, neutral, like, turkey sandwich of a person.
He's a jerk.
Yeah, and it's, what? You think Stannis is going to be the king? You're a moron.
We're pulling a lot of straw here. I get that a lot of people, like, a lot of people will say, like, it's not what happened, it's the execution. And I get it. We're not defending the show right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like we are a little, but we're not. Like, it's more of just kind of acknowledging that the show was kind of always doomed to disappoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not, and obviously there's so many ways D&D could have done this better.
Oh, for sure.
There's just so many places that went wrong, but at a certain level, this show was always gonna be disappointing.
Yeah.
And a version of this show that wasn't disappointed would probably just be a betrayal of what the show was.
Yeah.
And I would like to point out, because again, what I do intend on shit-talking a lot of the writing, and I feel like we've done that in plenty of the episodes of this podcast, but as far as Benioff and Weiss go, I would like to point out that I don't know if they're, like, terrible writers or not. I know, like, as far as previous works, what they did, like, Troy and X-Men Origins Wolverine, and I'm like, neither of those are good, per se, but I also
Troy's
feel like...
fun.
Yeah, Troy's fine, and I'm like, they didn't have, like, that much control over the things that they wanted to do, and there are, like, some ideas there. I never read Benioff's spy thriller book or anything, but as far as Game of Thrones, a TV show is a completely different animal than a series of novels, and they did bring this to life pretty well for a while. There are things in the earlier seasons that they did better on the show, than what's written in the books, in my opinion. And then they started making smart decisions of like streamlining the narrative a bit, which kind of works for the better. In fact, you know, in like season 5 or something, we always talk about the great like moment at the wall with like Stannis and Mance and Jon, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
that's great. And they streamlined the fuck out of that, because in the books it's all this Daffy Duck bullshit about like, oh, that wasn't really Mance, that was Rattleshirt, and Rattleshirt is secretly Mance. And then Jon has Mance's baby, but it's not really Mance's baby, it's Gilly's baby, and they gotta go rescue Arya, but that's really Jane Poole. And you're like, what the fuck is this shit?
Right, and the Arya stuff
sets them on fire.
It's in service. It's in service of something. But I agree. Like they a lot of people like will call season 5 the worst season, and I don't agree.
I can't remember. They all blend together.
I don't. Yeah. To me, I actually think that the seasons just legitimately get worse. Like I actually think season 6 is worse than season 5.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
I know you.
I can't remember the
very
differences.
few people do.
Yeah, they all blend together.
After 4, they blur.
I personally just hate season 6. I think season 6 is just like so. Like it has Battle of the Bastards, which I don't like very much. I like Hardhome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, Hardhome is.
Yeah, Hardhome fucks.
Hardhome fucks.
Yeah, Hardhome's great.
Yeah.
And I didn't like anyway. The Jamie stuff in season 6 was cool. For me, season 6 is when the show really starts feeling like it's being written for and by the fans, and that's actually something we should start talking about too. Is that like, I think really what brought down this show is that they started like letting the fans write their show.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I mean that's part of the cruel irony here is when Benioff and Weiss started doing their worst work, it was when they were just, we could make everyone happy. Let's try to do that. Oh, they didn't really like the stuff we did with Dorne. Let's just fucking not even try and kill them all. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, it was nice to see Dr. Bashir for a second, but
that's like, I've always been more interested in when someone has a creative vision and they're like, I'm going to tell this story and this is how I'm going to tell it, whether people like it or not. And that usually leads to like the best stories ever written. Like, I mean, if you just tell like the story that you want to tell, more often.
I mean, sometimes it's bad shit.
Yeah, no, sometimes no. I mean, no, you get bad shit that way. But I'm like, but you're more.
It's
the chance, it's genuine, and I can respect that. Well, I can respect a like just like I'm the only person like. We talk about Prometheus sometimes. I love that movie, and a lot of people don't like it. But, like, if you compare that to, say, Alien Covenant, like, Prometheus is genuine. Like, and I can respect it. I have no respect for Alien Covenant because it's, like, made by the fans.
I think probably the easier analysis is like
Dan rebuttal.
Batman v Superman versus Justice League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're both shitty, but, like, one of them feels like they're trying something, and then one of them just feels like they're not.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, like, a story is a statement, not a conversation. It's okay to have a conversation about that statement.
Yeah.
We critique movies all the time.
Yeah.
It's okay to dislike it, but the idea is, like, if you're telling a story, tell me something. Don't just be like, so, once upon a time, and then what do you guys think? That's called improv.
Yeah, and that again, that's why I really don't like season 6 and 7. And I like, I'll say this, I like season 8 better than season 6 and 7. Because even though, like, I would say season 8 is probably the worst, in a lot of ways is the worst one. At least the stuff that happens in season 8 is like moderately ballsy and interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's not a thing that happened in season 6 and 7 that is interesting. For the most, like off the top of my head, I mean, there's a couple things, but like for the most part, like season 6, 7 was like, oh, like what would happen in Star Wars? What would happen in like any mainstream story? That'll happen. Jon comes back to life. He goes, kills the bad bastard. Except
everybody gets a piece of him because he was mean to some people, man.
And they all get a piece of him. What happens to Arya? She finishes but like she wants to go, so she beats the bad one and then makes peace with the guy we all like, and then she leaves. And then she kills Walder Frey right away by herself, easy. It's like, it's like what happens in season 7? Oh, you know the cool handsome hero and the princess, they get together. It's great. They fuck on a boat. But first, hero guy, he goes beyond the wall with the A-team. It's like shit that would never happen in this story.
Yeah. I wish I did.
And again, right, there's a lot of like dumb White Hunt moment. I guess I'll say there's a lot of stuff that's about as like unrealistic as the White Hunt in season 8, but all of it is like consequential. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's crazy that like they're like, oh, Euron can like hide behind Dragonstone and take down a dragon and get Missandei. Like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. But at least someone dies.
Yeah.
Like, at least someone dies, and like it makes Daenerys angry. Like the White Hunt is like, oh no, Thoros is gonna die, but
hey, Cold Hands died.
The dead guy and the guy who
wasn't even in the episode except for just to show up and die.
He dies, and like Thoros dies, but like no one you really cared to have live dies.
Yeah.
And like, the dragon dies, but that's you don't really care about that. Like, I guess some people, but like again, consequential things versus not. And the way that fans are writing the show, I'll say this: I love. It's weird to say that I love things about the last episode because there are things about it that I love.
Jon Pet's Ghost.
Jon Pet's Ghost. I actually love the way this is like maybe one of the things I'm the most like mixed feelings about. I love the way the last scene is shot, but then upon like rewatch, something about it bugs me, and it's like, so you're going between Sansa, Arya, and Jon, right? Why them? Because they're like the fan favorites, I guess.
Well, they're the Starks.
World War's Bran.
But what about Bran?
It was
Fuck him.
I
Bran
guess,
Stark is
What,
dead.
is he just like sitting in his wheelchair with his eyes rolled back in his head with a big boner like, I'm king now,
How
nerds.
cinematic and epic.
right?
Yeah.
I agree. I just thought there was something like weird about the way that scene was set. It was like it was very for the fans, and that comes back to like, and again, I hate bringing this up a little, or not. I don't hate bringing this up, but like I do have to disclaimer when I bring this up. Like, yeah, I get that this ending wasn't great for women. Having your main like heroine character turn out to be too emotional, I get how that's problem. But like, Sansa, I love Sansa. I've loved Sansa for years.
Yeah,
for a while I wanted Sansa to be queen, but having Sansa become queen, in like having everyone elect Bran Stark king of the Seven Kingdoms, and then have Sansa be like, the Northern, we don't want to bow to anyone. So instead of the North taking advantage of having a Stark be king of the entire kingdoms, we're going to go be independent. That made no sense.
I get it. Hey, you know me. My heart beats true North. And I love Sansa. But that's one of those things that feels like fan service specifically for me almost. Is like, yeah, I've wanted Northern independence every time it's brought up. And then them getting it at the end, I'm like, this is really fucking weird. Where like Yara Greyjoy should be like, either there's a war or that's nepotism. Because like the king is just like, hey, my sister wants to have her own country.
Literally, so Daenerys agreed to have Yara, the Iron Islands, be independent. And then at the end, they're like, you're not. But the people who are going to be in charge, like, the Starks get to rule the Six Kingdoms and get to be independent. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, they fucking ran that meeting. And I get that, like, Sam's fat ass and then like the Tullys and the fucking Vale would probably all be like, yeah, the Starks are great, we love them, whatever they want to do. But the Iron Islands, Dorne, whoever that other guy was, what do they think?
Kemp, you've had your hand up for like 2 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. I just going back to why you didn't like the last scene. Part of me thinks it's because that scene felt like everything that Game of Thrones originally was supposed to be subverting. Like, that felt like the end scene to like a Lord of the Rings. Like, it was the happy ending.
Oh, what, you have all their friends now at like the king's table that you've put up with for so long. Bronn loves money now. He's the master of coin.
Set up for the Westerosi sitcom afterwards.
Yeah, I in principle, I like the idea that like, so Tyrion's council is like, outcasts.
Your who's who favorites of insignificant characters.
Yep.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think it's just that. I think there is something there where Tyrion's council is. So originally, the small council is like big shots, but now
now it's an Onion Knight and
it's an Onion Knight and a sellsword and the first woman Lord Commander
and a fast food enthusiast.
and a dwarf. Like I get where that's coming from.
Yeah,
but
Kidding, I love Sam. I can make fun of fat people.
Right. I get where that's coming from, but like definitely. I hate Bran.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that they didn't need to be funny in that scene.
They didn't need to be funny, and
No, but
like that just takes it back to how I keep saying that I was satisfied with this ending. Like, there's things I liked about it, but that's not why I like Game of Thrones. Like, there were too many happy endings for characters. Yes, like I love, like even like Jon's ending. Like, yes, this is the perfect ending for this character, but that also kind of bothers me.
Well, I mean, to be clear, Jon doesn't get everything that he wants.
No, he doesn't get anything.
He doesn't get anything that he wants. He gets a better alternative, really.
True. I'm just saying, like, it's a satisfying ending for that character, but I'm just, like, for the audience. And I kind of don't want that.
Sure.
I don't know. I think that
that's why I'm conflicted with this last season.
I would say, I don't know if that's,
episode.
maybe the reason I didn't like that, just, I like Bran so much I want him to be in it. But maybe I just felt like it was sad that it was the Starks, but not Bran. I don't know.
Maybe.
But, like, I will say that for me, like, that sort of small council scenes, like, I don't think the ending was too happy. I do think they moved on from Daenerys a little quickly.
Yeah.
I would say that
there was a literal time skip.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a time skip.
I was eavesdropping on a bunch of people at work, and I could just hear, like, what the hell was up with that time? Like, all of a sudden, it's like way later. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, people were pissed.
I'm cool with the time skip. It felt. I do feel like there should have been a little more to that. Honestly, maybe they needed an entire episode that ended. Maybe they needed an entire episode that ended with Daenerys' death, and then an entire episode after. Maybe like a big standoff with all the armies showing up, and it seemed. I don't want to get into because there's like a million different ways to do it.
Yeah.
But like maybe the last episode could have been like basically like everyone's on the brink of war again, and then there's this council, and then Tyrion again, it still requires more setup, but like Tyrion's speech somehow like stops everyone from going back to war. Because like the idea, because like they mentioned like, oh, our armies are outside the gates, but you don't really feel
that or see that.
You don't really see that or feel
Especially
that.
when people are making fucking jokes.
It would have been great to feel like there's this tension there that like if they can't come to a resolution in this meeting, everyone is fucked.
That's something that should have been like the bulk of the episode.
Yeah, I think that needed its own episode.
Yeah.
You could have ended the penultimate episode with Daenerys' death, and then the last episode like who's gonna rule now? Like what's gonna happen? And then you do the last episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
Instead, we got Sansa telling everyone his little brother's dick didn't work anymore.
Yeah, I will say that's another thing about. Yeah, that's another thing about that scene that kind of bugged me is the fact that Sansa was like the main obstacle to Bran becoming king. Anyone else feel that?
Yeah, it was really fucking stupid.
It was really weird, and it made Sansa just seem like a dick.
Yeah. Well, because there was no tension. Everyone's like, oh yeah, sure, Bran, like, which was weird, but it's like, yeah. And then as soon as like it turns to Sansa, she's like, actually, and it's like instant, like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, it was just everyone's agreeing.
It was just weird.
You're planning on bowing out anyway.
It's like this is the ideal like the Starks are in control of the Seven Kingdoms. Like, actually, no.
That might have been a business tactic, though, to get Grey Worm to be like, oh, well, if his pants don't work, then he's probably like me. He's good. No war. Sansa's a brilliant leader.
It would have been funny if they had, like, that like a shot, like oh,
Well, like they nod to each other.
like Grey Worm nods, like okay.
I get it.
Grey Worm looks down at himself and just thinks, "Damn, yeah."
Yeah, except Bran doesn't feel emotions, so he's just be like,
And neither does Grey Worm anymore.
Grey Worm feels angry.
feels angry,
Lots
yeah.
of it.
Grey Worm's been
But
mad.
not enough to murder
Yeah.
Jon.
Yeah.
Which is weird because he almost wanted to murder Jon when Jon said, "Hey, could we stop killing surrendered soldiers?" He's like, "Well, fuck you."
And then Jon kills the queen. It's like, all right, we're gonna wait for your sisters to get here.
Yeah. We'll see what they want to do with you. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I just think that they did something slightly different with Sansa's ending. It doesn't feel true. That's like that. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, King Bran, that can't be right." And like, no, that's right. There's no way. And I'll put it this way: like, there's no way David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who left Bran out of an entire season,
Oh yeah.
just decided we want Bran to be king.
Yeah.
That's George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, he wasn't like, "That's preposterous. That's not how it's gonna end."
like.
But I mean, he gets to sit back and play it like super cool now. Where like there were like a million fucking articles like the next day where they're like, George R.R. Martin says his book is going to end differently. When everyone was like, "Is the ending going to be the same?" And he's like, "Maybe, a little bit. I don't know. We can find out."
I mean, he's not. Again, he's saying like a lot of people like the fact that he says it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be.
It's going to be a little different, is what he's.
People it's like it's going to be a little different. There's a lot of different characters, and people are like, "Oh no, maybe Jon's king."
Jane Poole is going to sit on the throne.
No, I literally like I saw a guy post.
Easy, Mike.
I saw a guy posting on Reddit that was like, "No, in the books, Jon is going to be king. Like him going on north is like it's actually in the books he's going to go to the Heart of Winter to destroy it, and then they're all going to be waiting for him at the end to come back and be king." I'm like, "No, dude, you're crazy. If Jon was going to be king at the end, they would have done it."
See, that's
but
what
I will
fans
say-
should do, is if they want their happy ending, bribe George R.R. Martin to write it that way.
Yeah.
Just mail like chicken strip baskets to his house every day.
Right. But I will say that like Sansa's ending, I could see D&D having changed that.
Yeah.
Just because of Benioff's his favorite character. And also there's the gender issue. The fact that like they did bring down one of their great feminist icons in the episode before. So I could see them like kind of throwing it's like, all right, well we're gonna make Sansa.
We need to do something with chicks, I think.
We
Cover our bases.
Yeah, basically. Arya's ending caught me off guard, honestly.
Yeah, it was weird.
I'm okay with
I'm
it.
fine with it.
I mean, I don't
but-
care at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I never cared about Arya.
No.
so-
You know, I actually think that Arya was. I didn't like.
She was
become
good
the Night
this
King,
season.
but I thought she was great this
Other than
season.
when she killed.
Sure, yeah, I love that part when she's like, "We're family, we stick together no matter what," and then she's like, "I'm leaving and I'm not coming back."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tight, Arya. And then she's there to help and sit and deliberate on the future of the 6 kingdoms plus the north, and then she's like, "Also, I'm leaving." Again. And I'm like, that's fine, the show's over, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Do what you want. It doesn't matter.
I don't know. I think the humanization of Arya this season was pretty cool.
Arya had some really great moments in
Yeah.
this, but yeah, there's definitely inconsistencies. But
Yes.
I think that's more just like plot and less character.
She was better this season than she's been in years.
Yeah.
But she...
Probably since season 4.
Yeah, but not as good as she was in season 4.
Not as good as season 4, no. Season 4 Arya was like one of the best characters the show's ever done. Like that was I mean, I don't know about that. But it was very great
good.
character. Very great character. Tyrion.
Tyrion, yeah. I mean,
Okay, so this is just one of the things that kind of like harkens back to like the direction of the show. Instead, I fucking hated the opening scene so much where he goes to the crypts and finds Jaime and Cersei there. Like, I get like dramatic license and stuff, and it's set up to have like a big moment, but holy fuck, was that ham-fisted and dumb? Like, he's just able to get through like the rubble that they couldn't the episode before, and even though like the whole thing collapsed and fell in on itself, he's just like moves like 3 rocks with his little midget hands, and it's like, there's Jaime. There's Cersei. I'm sad now. You feel sad too, because that's the point of this scene.
It did seem pretty ridiculous. And I understand that, you know, what's her name? Daenerys, that's the character, would probably have sent somebody to like retrieve their bodies at some point. So it's like, just do it that way.
Yeah.
Where he sees them dragging out their like smashed corpses.
All it had to be was he sees the golden hand hanging off like a fucking corpse cart or something, and he has a big emotional breakdown. Like, that's all it had to be. But instead, it had to be handled that way, and holy shit.
Well, that was like, again, my big problem was that when that scene was going on, I'm like, this is the last episode. I get what you're trying to do, but we don't have a lot of time here.
No, it's that too. But like,
that's such a hard. Like, I can imagine you like saying that to Tyrion.
I was just thinking that. Like, I thought, like, you sound like you're talking to a friend.
It's literally like
It's like I'm now imagining like Kemp, like Tyrion is crying over his siblings' corpses. Then Kemp shows up like, Tyrion, I get that you're upset, but this is the last episode. We don't have a lot of time.
It's like the fucking Chappelle Show skit where he's got the wrap it up box and he's just like standing in the back of the fucking shot and playing it, just like, wrap this shit up.
Like, let's go. Like,
God, man, if D&D just would have made friends with you, sir.
really got things moving along.
I think that, I don't know, like, Tyrion is Peter Dinklage is a good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that's just something that, like, in every episode,
he's the fan favorite.
Whenever, in every episode, whether the show is like doing well or not, whether the writing is good or not, Peter Dinklage is killing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially this season, like he's had a couple seasons where his story was like real boring, and it was just like, I tell jokes.
I
like,
drink and I know things.
Yeah.
And then that's on every t-shirt from Game of Thrones from here on out.
Pretty much everything while I was in Marine, because there were no like emotional stakes there.
Yeah.
But since he's been back in Westeros and there's been like emotional stakes to the things he does, like he just been killing it in every scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought his speech, conceptually the idea that stories bring us together, that's really interesting.
That's great.
It's not, they didn't really sell it. But
I don't know why Grey Worm would give a shit. But
he sold Tyrion in that moment. I don't think the show was able to sell everyone agreeing to King Bran.
Yeah, no, they absolutely weren't.
But Dinklage sold Tyrion, and I think that was pretty good.
No, he was great acting wise. Like he gave a great performance, but holy shit, the writing for that character has been fucking awful. Like I think it's been top tier terrible.
Even this season?
Yes, he's made nothing but like bad decisions that have not worked out. He hasn't been smarter than anyone. Everything he's done is basically just backfired.
See, I'm okay with it. Like I have to agree. I think that Tyrion's low point was in Essos. I think that.
Yeah, I think that was the start of it, though. I don't think he ever really recovered from that. He never felt like smart and scheming or like on par with anything that he did earlier in the show.
Sure, I mean his story is nowhere near as good as like his time in King's Landing. But I do think that the character sort of wins me back a lot in a lot of ways. Of like, he does look like a moron with his like series of mistakes. But for a lot of those, like I feel it, where like he's sort of emotionally conflicted. I mean, same thing, like, the Lannisters are all kind of big duds at the end of the day.
Well, no, for sure. But the issue with that is there's no consequence for his, like, mistakes and failures.
I'm going to throw this out there. I think that the idea that Tyrion is very, very smart is actually just a misconception. I don't think Tyrion was actually never that smart.
Yeah.
Even in King's Landing.
You're not half as clever as you think you are. But I'm still more clever than you. He's just smarter than Cersei.
He's smarter than Cersei. But, like, in Season 2, he was basically just like scheming with Cersei, or scheming against Cersei. He's clever, but he's not.
Yeah, I don't think he's like the smartest person in the world. Like I honestly
he's not
figured. Yeah, Littlefinger and Varys, I figured were like at least more scheming than he was. Like Tyrion was like a tier below them.
Yeah, or two.
Yeah, honestly.
But like I get it. I don't know.
But,
I'm conflicted about this. Like, definitely, there was like a sense that he made a lot of like fumbles or like
But Tyrion also has scruples. I mean, like Ned Stark's not like a big dum dum. He's just like, I want to be a good guy. So now I look like a dum dum. Like I'm not trying to just like overly defend Tyrion. It's just I think like there's a lot of like moral decisions that he makes where it's like. Trusting Cersei, that's really fucking stupid. But he's also like, I don't want like my pregnant sister to get murdered. So whoops.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm conflicted about it because I feel like So in the end, there's something really cool. It's so subtle and not in a good way. It's subtle in like a bad way. It's subtle in a bad way that like it seems like it's part of George R. R. Martin's story, but D&D had trouble working it in because they don't care about themes. Where basically the thing that Bran does at the end of the story, like the thing that matters is, so the story opens on like Ned Stark telling Bran about justice and showing him like, oh, one day this is gonna be on you. And the justice that is happening throughout the entire story is retributive. So it's based on punishment. And then in like when Bran becomes king, what he does is like a bunch of restorative justice. Like his justice is about like rehabilitating people and making things right with the community. So he's like Tyrion, Grey Worm's like he deserves justice, and then like Bran's like, he just got it. He's made a lot of mistakes. He's gonna spend the rest of his life fixing them. I like that in concept. I do think that like it probably would have worked better for Book Tyrion, who's a really shady guy who does a lot of bad things. And it might have worked. So it works maybe less with show Tyrion, who's like a really nice guy who
I think that they try to
guffawed
they try to put that in there by like him recapping his greatest hits when he's like, hey, am I gonna go to hell because like I killed my girlfriend and my dad that one time. I've done some shitty shit. So it does feel like they're like trying to remind the audience a little bit that like, don't forget Tyrion's done some things. Yeah,
and you know, last episode, like one not so innocent dwarf. So I think that's actually like an element. Again, not to keep like bringing up the books, but I think that is an element of the books that the show failed to work in. Is that like at the end, it's going to be a thing where Tyrion is this really not so innocent character that it like means something that he's forgiven. Whereas in the show, it's like, well, he's like a character that's just made a lot of dumb mistakes.
And people love him, so
people love him, so let's forgive him. And I think it's the same with Jon. Like Jon also gets restorative justice. He's like, all right, we're gonna send you to the wall because you hate that. And it's like, no, he doesn't.
Oh no! I hope I don't have to go north, meet a beautiful wildling women, and be a king. That would be terrible.
Hang out with my best friend.
Also, the whole people that were angry at me just fucking left the country. So, and my brother is king, so he could just pardon me. I could fuck off and come back whenever.
He could have asked. He could have been, well, since they left, can I stay here? He was like, fuck it, this is great. Going north.
No. Yeah. No. He that's what he wanted to do. I don't know. Like there were moments of the episode that were pretty. I think Jon's goodbye to Sansa, Arya, and Bran was pretty good.
I mean, there were good moments in this. Like, you know, we jest, and I mean, it was definitely rushed, but I like a little bit of, like, when Tyrion is pointing out, like, you know, throughout the show, all of the people that Daenerys has ruthlessly murdered are people that have deserved it, so we never batted an eye. And then that's part of the problem, is that we've always praised her for some of her, like, hardcore decisions, and now she believes that she's the moral right. And I'm like, you're addressing like a really good core idea. You didn't do it like very much in your show. A lot of the last season is boiled down to just one-note conversations. It's kind of disappointing that Tyrion and Varys make their decisions about Daenerys in one conversation, and then you're like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I saw someone actually got really offended about that. One of the Game of Thrones, like A Song of Ice and Fire people, because like he likened it. Because it has like kind of echoes of the Holocaust poem about first they came for these people and then first they came for these people. But when said that way about slavers and like really shitty people, it trivialized it. I don't think, again, I'm just saying that's something that people have taken. That's not what I took from it. I don't think that's what they intended.
No, I doubt that.
No, I don't.
I would hope not.
But yeah, I agree that there's something to that speech. There's something to the idea of like recontextualizing Daenerys' rise to power. That like, yeah, it was cool when she was doing this to all these bad people, but what about now? what's happening to people we understand. I do think that it felt a little bit like justifying to the audience.
A little, but I mean, I feel like again, none of it's fleshed out enough. But it helps address the idea of like, well, how could Daenerys do all of this and then still think that everything is going to be okay? And it's like, well, because she saved a lot of people before. She's made all of these like hardcore decisions, and everyone's told her, well, you're doing the right thing, and it's worked out so far. And then why wouldn't she keep doing that? Why wouldn't she think that she is right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that idea could work if we had more time.
Again, I agree. I mean, I kind of want to get back to talking about... I want to say one more thing. I kind of want to get back to talking about the fandom. Yeah, there's definitely an element of Daenerys that's like... I keep coming back to this. I really do think that Daenerys should have been depicted in a more morally gray way. I think that the problem...
Yeah, the idea of like her second dragon dying in that fight and then doing all that, that would really have helped a lot.
Honestly, so what I like about the books is that characters are morally gray, but instead for years I've just complained like Daenerys is whitewashed in the show. She's so whitewashed. And because we always assumed that she would never fully turn evil, that just felt like, oh, it's annoying because this character could be all morally gray and interesting, but instead she's just this like hero savior. And instead it's like, oh, she's whitewashed, she's a hero savior. I mean, and again, there were signs, there were things, but it's like she was still a very whitewashed version of her book character. And then at the end, she's like morally black. She's just this like evil, like the things she's saying and doing and the way she's depicted in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah,
it's just insane. It's like, well, how it's horrifying. And I think like a more morally gray Daenerys would have done wonders for this ending. Mm-hmm. But I think that's another reason why I kind of get annoyed by Benioff and Weiss. I think they basically decided like, well, one way or another, we're gonna alienate and piss off all of the Daenerys fans. So let's just try and please the fans of Sansa, Arya, and Jon. They will be completely right about. They will be critical of her because for a while I thought like, oh, this is interesting because like Sansa committed treason against Daenerys, but like I like Sansa, but like she shouldn't have done that to Daenerys. Instead, it's like, no, Sansa was right to do that. Everyone was right to do everything they did to Daenerys because Daenerys is an evil psychopath. I'm like, okay.
Because that was the disappointing thing. Like, I got really excited whenever Sansa told Tyrion about Jon's parentage. And I was like, oh, great. So this is going to be, like, the weird, like, crazy, like, political, like, intrigue. Like, there's going to start causing splinter groups and people, like, kind of coming up with their own ideas of how things should be because of this, like, little fact of information.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, no, it led to...
Just like, well, now she's evil.
She's evil, yeah. Like, there's no, like, gray about it at all. It's not.
Like... But anyway, like, as we wrap up, like, this is just a show that it's just become so big, and it's kind of fitting that it exploded at the end. You know what I mean? It's kind of fitting that, like, this show that got so big, and that you took something that was not supposed to be mainstream, and you made it mainstream as hell. It's I think it's really fitting that like everyone's pissed.
I called early on. I was like, no one's going to be happy by the end of this. I knew it, and I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm fine with this ending. There were things about it I liked, especially considering the way the show ended up. I'm fine. I'm not surprised in the least that people are carrying around their torches and pitchforks over this ending because it's too big.
Dan?
Shit's been back and forth with me for a while. Like, the start of the season, I was kind of, like, still holding out hope that it would, like, recover and be, like, kind of bring it back to, like, the feeling of the earlier series and more like the books. And then, like, I actually rewatched all the episodes before rewatching the finale, and I was just kind of like, it's still fun. It's still dumb. There's a lot of stupid shit. But, it's an enjoyable watch. Still good TV. And then finally watching the finale, I was just like... I felt myself slipping back into that whole mentality of, like... I'm kind of annoyed and bored. Like, I really like the conversation with, like, Tyrion and Jon where, like, he's trying to, they're both trying to convince each other. Like, Jon is, like, saying basically, like, trying to convince himself as much as Tyrion that, like, Dany's still good. And, like, that was kind of interesting. And then, like, Tyrion's whole conversation about, like, she's done this before. It was an attempt to recontextualize things and justify what's happening now. But then, like, the whole shit I mentioned before in the crypts with Tyrion discovering Jaime. The whole fact that it's like, is this snow in the city? Is this ash? Why is everything white? This doesn't make sense. Ash isn't fucking white, it's gray. It's just kind of there for visual motif. Is winter actually a thing now? Even though, like, they announced, 4 seasons ago that winter was fucking here? Is it, like, snowing in King's Landing for a day? So this is just, like, my head wandering into, like, this is dumb, so I'm just gonna nitpick kind of ill. It's like, honestly, the day after, I almost had to remind myself, like, oh yeah, I did watch the finale. Like, just, like, I check my Facebook feed and I see it, like, on fire with people just, like, fucking being, like, giant entitled ass bags about everything, what they weren't happy about and what they wanted to change. And I was like, yeah, that was totally a thing. And it's just like, wow, like, that was just such a whimper going out with. And a lot of it too, and it's like, maybe the whole Song of Ice and Fire wound up being this way as well too, but so much of this series feels like it could have been, like, cut out and it wouldn't have affected how it ended.
Yeah.
I don't want, like, I really hope it, there's a lot of, like, conflict, especially with the Night King and how that was resolved, but, like, yeah, there's a good argument for just, like, cutting out the White Walker, like, aspect of this whole thing and not affecting, like, a vast amount of these characters' storylines and shit, and that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that really sucks. Like, do you mean to tell me, like, the Night King is inside us all along? Is that the real threat? Ourselves and our toxic entitlement and, hatred? Is that it?
I mean, I think that is what they were going for. I agree, like, the
Night King is inside us a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, like, the idea that, like, what the White Walkers represent, it's a part of us, and it's, like, I don't think that's inherently, but like, I agree, yeah, they really should have, I don't think the books will be like that, but I really do think that, like, there's an argument for cutting out the whole White Walker storyline.
Oh, yeah, and I feel like, I mean, it's part of the reason why I haven't read all of the books, is like, oh, it starts going on, like, these weird tangents with different characters and stuff where I'm like, whatever. But, I mean, with a book series, you can do that, where you've got years before each one comes out, and you want a big, meaty, substantial story, and you want parts of it to stand alone, because this is all you have to read for a while. TV shows don't work that way, where you're going to do boom, 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 like, 10 weeks in a row, and then, like, a few months hiatus, and then we're back again. And then it's like, it's a shame to say, but honestly, I feel like the strongest elements of this story, and the ones that worked the best for me, were, like, the War of Five Kings, where you have all these different factions, and, like, the situations become about ethics and intrigue and about characters. And then the more fantastic it gets, I'm like, oh, what was the point of that? Come on. But, it is what it is. It's over now. Who cares?
Yeah. It's just been this huge thing for so many years, and it's a thing that was, it was always like, I always thought that one of two things would happen. Either everyone would love the ending and I would hate it, or the ending would be controversial and I would love it. But I did not think that the ending was going to be this bad and everyone would hate it and I would feel like this empty about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought, like, well, either Jon and Dany are going to be king and get married and it's going to be like a happy ending, or like they die but their, like, baby is on the throne, or some weird sentimental hero affirming story like that. And I would just be like, okay, whatever. And then everyone would be like, the best story that ever happened. I love it. Or I thought it would give me what I want and I would like it, but then everyone would be like, I don't know, that was weird. But instead, it's like kind of the worst of both of those, where it's like, it gave me what I want, but it didn't give me what I want.
That's
it gave me, like,
to please everybody.
Yeah, and I've again, I want to do an entire video about this, but I really think the problem is that this show was never supposed to be for everyone, and they tried to write it for everyone, and they spent like, in the books, like, so much, like Battle of the Bastards. I'm pretty sure in the book Stannis is going to do that.
Probably,
like, fight the bulls. Like, so much of the books, like, the main characters you're watching aren't always doing the great stuff. Like, Jon doesn't command everyone at the battle of Castle Black.
No, he's up on the fucking wall with the archers. Could you imagine though how fucking? Because I mean, Battle of the Bastards is a pretty impressive episode. It's pretty good. It's just morally like straightforward and boring. Could you imagine watching that and it was Stannis versus Ramsay, and you wouldn't actually be entirely sure like, oh, who's gonna take it? Because like, both of these characters are eventually gonna die. That would have been sick.
Yeah, like because I mean, the last thing they did with Stannis with the Blackwater is pretty awesome. But yeah, like there's, or like, you know, in the books, like again, I keep assuming things about the books, but like they're safe assumptions. Arya's not going to kill Walder Frey. The Lady Stoneheart's gonna, like, they started taking all of these big moments that are going to happen in the books. They need to happen for the story, and giving them to major characters because that's what's satisfying. And somewhere along the line, because of that, you started to just feel like you were in, not you, but like the audience starts to feel like they're entitled to that satisfaction.
Oh yeah, like do it in fucking moderation. It's a big part of why, like, oh, Tyrion killing Charles Dance is like a huge fucking moment because you're like, since when does the guy that we like kill the guy that torments him that perfectly? Like,
and then he feels like terrible about it.
Yeah,
and it ruins his life. Like that's great. And then like. So, like, the idea of, like, Lady Stoneheart killing Walder Frey, it's like, that's kind of cool, because, like, Walder Frey's this guy that we hate, but Lady Stoneheart is a monster who hangs people who don't deserve it.
And she's literally a monster.
And she's literally a monster.
A zombie.
Or, like, the idea, I don't know. But it just gets to this point where it just starts trying to satisfy everyone all the time. And it builds that story for 2 or 3 years. And then, at the end, it half does that story and half doesn't.
Yep. It's fucked. It's over. It don't matter.
I don't think... I'm curious to see how this will stand the test of time. Where Game of Thrones will kind of fall as far as the show goes. Like, within the great TV shows.
I think it's always going to be remembered as like a show that had like a really bad ending.
Like,
but and one thing I don't like about that...
It's going to be Sopranos territory here.
No, I don't think it's... I think it's going to be Lost territory.
Yeah, Lost territory. I think it's already being compared to Lost.
Yeah, but here's the thing, is I understand it, I get it, but one, Lost and Heroes were like 2 shows that had like a good first season, and then they like fucked themselves in the face for the rest of it. And Game of Thrones, I mean, it lasts a little longer before it turns to crap. Also, those shows were never as big as Game of Thrones became.
True, but I still think it's going to be Lost territory, just because... Yeah, Lost does get bad, but people don't remember that Lost gradually got bad. People remember the ending.
Yeah, maybe.
And with this, people are just going to say, oh, Game of Thrones, the show ended bad. But for me, like, that's one thing that annoys me is that that's not what I think happened. I think Game of Thrones got bad for several years. It didn't just end bad.
Yeah.
But people are going to remember, like, oh, and then they just made Bran the king. And, like, that's not what's wrong with this story. I like King Bran, okay? I will say that.
Really? You?
Wolf Punch.